I'd like to thank the members of the Academy for honoring my fellow nominees and myself. This means a lot to me, since it comes from a role in which I was directed by my father.
Anjelica Huston's life has always been touched by both brilliance and tragedy. Born on July 8, 1951, in Los Angeles, her arrival already carried drama. Her father, John Huston, was a legendary Hollywood director, but at the time of her birth, he was thousands of miles away in Uganda filming The African Queen. He had to be contacted by telegram at a local post office to even know his daughter had been born. Her mother, Enrica Soma, was a talented ballerina who brought grace and discipline into the home. From the outside, their family looked glamorous, but in reality, life was far from perfect. Anjelica and her brother Tony were taught at home rather than going to a regular school. This created an unusual childhood, one filled with silence, isolation, and very little contact with other children. Their father was often absent, chasing projects across the world, while their mother struggled to keep things together. Over time, the family grew bigger, with adopted and half-siblings, but despite the crowd, Anjelica often felt alone. She grew up surrounded by fields and animals, yet she longed for connection. Her uncle was the actor Walter Huston, and later she would become the aunt of actor Jack Huston. But fame in the family never erased her feeling of being overlooked. Then tragedy struck in 1969 when her mother died in a violent car crash in France. Enrica was just 39 years old, and Anjelica was only 17. The sudden loss shattered her world. She was caught between childhood and adulthood, and the one person who gave her stability was gone forever. That pain would follow her for years to come, shaping the choices she made both in love and in her career. After her mother's death, Anjelica tried to start over by moving to London with her father, but nothing about it felt like a fresh beginning. She was tall, almost 6 feet, and her dyslexia made school difficult. She often felt out of place, teased by other kids for her looks. At just 16, she dropped out of school and began sneaking into London clubs where rock bands like the Yardbirds performed. This rebellion was her way of carving out an identity. In 1969, she began modeling and quickly found herself working with big names like photographer Richard Avedon. Vogue featured her in an ethereal shoot in the Irish bogs, where she looked otherworldly. On the outside, her career was taking off, but inside, she was still grieving deeply for her mother. Modeling came with its own problems: invasive photographers, the constant demand for perfection, and the pressure of being compared to other models like Twiggy. She earned money, sometimes as much as $1,000 per shoot, but she often turned to drugs like cocaine and LSD to cope with the stress and the emptiness she carried inside. In Paris, she walked the runways, but even that success left her feeling hollow. At just 21, she realized modeling was not her true path. She wanted something more meaningful. That's when she decided to turn toward acting, despite the challenges of being the daughter of a famous director. Her first film, A Walk with Love and Death, was directed by her father, but the experience was painful. She struggled to remember her lines, and critics were harsh. Her father even admitted years later that he favored her brother, Tony, which left her feeling unsupported. The combination of grief, pressure, and rejection shaped her into someone who appeared confident on the outside but battled turmoil within. When Anjelica stepped away from modeling and focused on acting in the early 1970s, it was not an easy transition. Many people in Hollywood assumed she was only landing roles because of her last name. Critics were quick to dismiss her work as nepotism, saying she had opportunities only because she was John Huston's daughter. This judgment weighed heavily on her. In films like The Man Who Would Be King and Swashbuckler, she had either very small roles or was caught in productions that turned chaotic. On set, she sometimes felt invisible, and co-stars could be harsh, criticizing her accent or acting. These early failures chipped away at her confidence. Behind the scenes, her family life also remained fractured. Her father was often emotionally distant, and his high expectations left her feeling like she could never measure up. By the mid-1970s, she thought seriously about walking away from acting altogether. But just as her career seemed shaky, her personal life began to take a dramatic turn with the entry of Jack Nicholson. Their relationship would last nearly 2 decades and would define much of her story, for better and for worse. Nicholson was already a Hollywood star when they met. He was charming, magnetic, and wildly unpredictable. At first, their connection felt magical, like stepping into a new world. But over time, it became a cycle of passion, betrayal, and heartbreak. Anjelica Huston's love story with Jack Nicholson is one of the most talked about relationships in Hollywood history. They met in 1973 when she was just 21 and he was 36. At first, their romance seemed exciting and glamorous. Nicholson swept her off her feet, showering her with gifts like a Mercedes convertible. They danced at parties, laughed in smoky rooms filled with stars, and lived like Hollywood royalty. But the cracks appeared quickly. Jack Nicholson was notorious for his affairs. He had countless flings with models, actresses, and waitresses. Anjelica often discovered evidence clothes left behind in his house. Rumors whispered in Hollywood circles. and even women bold enough to approach her directly. One of the most painful blows came in 1980 when Nicholson confessed that another woman was pregnant with his child. Furious, Anjelica lashed out physically, hitting him in a moment of raw emotion. She later admitted that for years she endured his betrayals, often forgiving him despite the pain. Friends close to her said she stayed because she truly loved him, even when the relationship was filled with chaos. There were moments of tenderness, but the cycle of infidelity continued. By the time the relationship ended in 1990, Nicholson had fathered children with other women. The final straw came when she learned about his relationship with Rebecca Broussard, who was pregnant with his child. This revelation broke her completely, leading to a violent confrontation where she struck him again in anger. Though they separated, the bond between them strangely endured, and decades later, they remained connected in ways that surprised many, even as her personal life was stormy. Anjelica Huston's career was rising. In 1985, she delivered a remarkable performance in Prizzy's Honor, a dark comedy directed by her father, John Huston. She played a hit woman named Maris Prizzy with sharp wit and danger, stealing every scene she was in. That role changed everything. In 1986, she won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, making history as the third person in her family to win an Oscar following her grandfather Walter Huston and her father John Huston. It was a moment of triumph, but even success came with hidden pain. During filming, her father had been extremely tough on her, criticizing her acting and forcing her to repeat scenes over and over. Behind the golden statue was a woman still carrying wounds, both from her father and from Nicholson. Still, the Oscar gave her credibility in Hollywood. She was no longer seen as just John Huston's daughter, she was an artist in her own right. In the years that followed, she took on more powerful roles, including The Dead in 1987, which was her father's final film before his death. Her monologue in the film, where she reflected on lost love, was considered one of the most moving performances of her career. Critics praised her ability to bring depth and emotion to every role, proving that she was more than capable of standing on her own. The 1990s brought Anjelica Huston some of her most iconic roles that defined her in popular culture. In 1990, she transformed into the terrifying Grand High Witch in The Witches. The makeup process was grueling, sometimes taking more than 7 hours to apply and another 6 hours to remove. The prosthetics, claws, and heavy costumes were physically punishing, yet her performance became unforgettable. Then, in 1991, she embodied Morticia Addams in The Addams Family. Her portrayal was so elegant and darkly funny that Morticia became a cultural icon. But the costume and makeup were extremely uncomfortable. She wore a steel corset that gave her headaches and tape that pulled at her skin for hours. Despite the pain, she delivered a performance that is still celebrated today. She reprised the role in Addams Family Values in 1993, further cementing her status as a Hollywood legend. Yet, behind the applause, Anjelica carried emotional exhaustion. The pressure of Hollywood, the memories of her broken relationship with Nicholson, and the physical toll of her roles all weighed heavily on her. Still, she kept going, proving again and again that her strength was greater than her struggles. In the late 1990s and 2000s, Anjelica continued to evolve. She played the wicked stepmother in Ever After 1998, giving a feminist twist to the classic fairy tale. She also stepped behind the camera, directing films like Agnes Brown, 1999. Though these projects didn't always get the recognition they deserved, they showed her determination to carve her own path in Hollywood. She also found new audiences by voicing Queen Clarion in Disney's Tinkerbell series, a role she played for several years. But life outside of film wasn't easy. She faced health problems, including Epstein-Barr virus, earlier in her career, and later, in 2019, a battle with cancer that she kept secret for 6 years. She revealed in 2025 that she had undergone radiation treatment during the filming of John Wick, Chapter 3, where she played a fierce crime boss. Despite her illness, she performed intense fight scenes, even slapping Keanu Reeves repeatedly in one sequence. The illness made her reflect deeply on life, and by the time she revealed her secret, she was cancer-free and grateful for survival. She said the experience taught her to laugh more and stress less, embracing life in a way she had never done before. After decades of silence, in 2025, at the age of 74, Anjelica Huston finally spoke openly about her long and painful relationship with Jack Nicholson. Many people had long assumed she stayed with him out of fear, insecurity, or denial. But her confession surprised everyone. She said she stayed because she truly loved him. She never saw his cheating as a personal insult, it was simply who he was. She admitted that the Hollywood lifestyle demanded toughness, and she learned to protect herself emotionally while still holding on to love. Even after the betrayals, the violence, and the heartbreak, she never hated him. Instead, she turned her pain into art, channeling her experiences into the powerful roles that made her unforgettable. In early 2025, wildfires swept through California, destroying thousands of homes. Anjelica was forced to flee her ranch with her pets and housekeeper. Her home was nearly lost, and when she needed help, it was Jack Nicholson, now 87 years old, who called her first. He even offered his home to her, reminding her that despite everything, their bond was still strong. For her, this moment showed that love, even when painful, never completely disappears. Anjelica Huston's life is not just the story of a Hollywood actress, it is the story of resilience. She endured childhood loss, toxic relationships, betrayal, and illness, yet she continued to rise. Her career gave the world unforgettable characters, from the terrifying Grand High Witch to the iconic Morticia Addams. Behind those performances was a woman who had lived through more heartbreak than most could bear, but who found strength in every struggle. At 74, she has revealed her deepest secrets, including her hidden battle with cancer and the truth about why she stayed with Jack Nicholson for 17 years. Her honesty shows that even in a world filled with glitter and fame, pain and love are deeply human experiences. Anjelica Huston stands as proof that you can survive loss, heartbreak, and even betrayal, and still come out stronger. Her story is not just about Hollywood, it is about courage, resilience, and the power of love, even when it hurts.